Hi guys, Marian here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm just filming a catch-up Q&A. Come sit down and chat with me. Grab yourself a cup of nice hot coffee and let's chill. If you're new here, by the way, welcome. My name is Marian. I make videos about being a mom, being a Jewish mom, and I'm super excited because Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, is right around the corner. So you're about to start seeing a lot of Rosh Hashanah content on my channel. So I thought it would be a good time to just like catch up, sit back, chat, talk about how things are going before the start of the new year. And you might be wondering about my hair. Yes, I got a major haircut. That is my biggest reveal of the video. I cut my hair, yeah. I've had really long hair for a really long time. Initially, I was not expecting to go this short, quite this short, but I did want it to be shorter. Basically, I'm just at a stage in my life where a lot is changing. I feel like I'm entering a new phase and stage of life. So my oldest son started kindergarten this week, which I feel like is just such a huge milestone in motherhood, because once you start elementary school, it's like things really change. You're no longer a little toddler. You're making friends on your own. You're doing things on your own. It's like you have your whole life at school now separate from your home life. So that feels like a huge change. Such a like major event in my life as a mom, let alone his life. And then my youngest is turning 1 year old. I feel like he was just born. I feel like I was just announcing his pregnancy, my pregnancy with him. He's gonna be 1 really soon. I have some content about first year, like birthday gifts, best toys for 1 year old, that kind of stuff coming up. And then my middle one is like in preschool and he's growing up too. So it just felt like, you know, the beginning of a new year, the beginning of a new season in my life as a mom, and I just wanted to get it off. So I'm really happy with it. It's definitely a big change, and like I'll still wake up in the morning and be like, what happened? But I'm really happy with it. Okay, all the other questions are ones that you guys submitted to me. I put on my little community tab, I think it's called, ask any questions here. So let's just jump in. I have not even read through them yet. Let's see if I can even find where they are. Okay, there's a bunch. I'm just gonna randomly go through and pick one. Okay, do you have any advice for sending children to Jewish schools on a budget? Every school I've researched is outside we can afford, even Hebrew school. And then there's a whole bunch. Okay, so yeah, Jewish day school is hugely expensive. And this is like a huge issue in the American Jewish world, because a lot of families would love to send their kids to Jewish day school, but especially if you have more than one kid, it is just prohibitively expensive. Growing up, actually, so I grew up in LA, and at the time in the 90s, the public schools were really bad, and everyone who was Jewish would send their kid to a Jewish day school, even if they weren't that religious. There were some good public schools, but like in general, that was a lot of what you saw was kids going to Jewish day school. But I knew a lot of kids who are Jewish that actually went to Catholic school because the Catholic schools were so much less expensive than the Jewish schools. So I think it's kind of one of these things that's just been an issue and we haven't really figured it out yet. It's interesting because like the Orthodox communities, invest a lot in their schools. Not that all their schools are amazing, but like every Orthodox child, primarily, that's generalization, but almost every Orthodox child goes to a Jewish day school, an Orthodox Jewish day school. And some of them are like really small, some are really large. There's just a huge variety, but generally if you are Orthodox, you will be going to an Orthodox Jewish day school. And they teach Hebrew and Judaica, you know, Jewish learning, Torah throughout the day. So the hours of school that you're learning English, math, science, that kind of thing is half the day, and then usually the other half is Jewish studies, Hebrew studies, that sort of thing. But the Orthodox have sort of figured out a way to make it slightly less expensive, because conservative reform Jewish day schools are generally of the mindset and model that they want to compete with other private schools. So you'll see tuitions ranging from $20,000 all the way up to $40,000 a year per child. And while they do offer discounts and they really try their best to work with families, their model is to compete with other private schools that are at the same level. So people who go to private school generally, either they need to send their kid there for whatever reason, or they want that, high level extracurriculars, special education, all the wonderful things that might come with a private school. So the Jewish schools are like, okay, so we're going to be like those private schools, but we're also going to have Judaism. The problem is for the families that can afford private school, often the Jewish day schools are not quite at the level of the private schools because, again, they're spending part of their day doing Jewish, Hebrew, etc. And they might be a little bit smaller than the other private schools, but they're way more expensive, obviously, than the public schools and some of the other like small local Catholic schools that are funded in part by the Catholic Church. This has gone on such a tangent. This was the first question. But I find this super, super fascinating as someone who grew up going to Jewish day school because it's just such an interesting business model. So unlike the Catholic Church, there isn't this overall governing body that's investing all this money in Jewish day schools to make them less expensive for families. They tried, but it's like nothing like the Catholic Church has. And unlike the Orthodox Jewish communities who've made their schools much less expensive and don't really compete with like secular private schools, the conservative and reformed Jewish day schools are really in this middle ground, which makes it prohibitively expensive for the average Jewish family who just wants to send their kid to a Jewish school. So I don't have an answer for you other than that there are so many options for Hebrew schools if you know where to look and if you want to keep trying and if you live in a big community like LA, New York. If you're somewhere else in the country, then yeah, it probably is just expensive. But I would just say to keep asking the school for a discount, ask your local Jewish Federation, your JCC. Like there are a lot of organizations, Jewish organizations that fundraise for this exact type of thing. So if your local federation can't help you, try going to the next one, search online for scholarships. There are a lot of people who are trying to get the money to the right places, and guaranteed it's absolutely hard to get that money sometimes, but I would just encourage you to keep trying. Okay, next question. Marian, I would love to know more about the role of prayer in your life as a conservative Jewish woman. Do you have a certain Siddur prayer you do daily, or is it more spontaneous or a combination of both? So I love going to synagogue. I don't get to go as often as I would like, and especially like on Shabbat, we're often going to the Tat Shabbat program with my kids, so I don't get the opportunity to pray in a synagogue as much as I would like. I would say once a month or so, end up at like an evening minyan or something like that, or like happenstance, I'm at our synagogue a lot, so I get to kind of drop in to various services, but not as often as I would like. And I think that it's just the season of life. I'm sure as my kids are older, I will get to do that more. In terms of personal prayer, most of that for me is taking place on Shabbat, saying the blessings for the holiday and that sort of thing, and then taking time to reflect on the week and say my personal prayers. I also do that at Havdalah as well, but I don't personally like pray with a prayer book every single day. But I do try to communicate to God or to have that like introspective prayer time throughout my day, usually like if I'm on a walk and letting my mind wander, or at night, that sort of thing. But I have had times in my life previously and maybe in the future where I did pray more often with an actual Siddur or in a synagogue. Oh, this is an interesting one. Hello, I'm wondering if you're aware how and why your parents chose your name. You share such great Jewish baby name videos, and I'd be curious about any history behind your beautiful name. So almost every Saturday night, I try on Instagram to do a let me help you name your baby, because Jewish families will choose an English name and a Hebrew name. And I just found out that a lot of them struggle with picking their Hebrew name for their child. And this is something I absolutely love thinking about, talking about, researching. So on my Instagram, I put up like a question box every Saturday night, like let me help you name your baby. So that's been so fun. So my Hebrew name is actually a Yiddish name. It's Bryna, and I was named after my great grandmother. That was her name. So she didn't also have an English name or the Hebrew name kind of thing. Her name was Bryna. She was from, I want to say Poland. I know it was Eastern Europe, and then emigrated to South Africa. So I actually asked my friend who's in the Hasidic, community, like, do you still hear that name often? And she said, yeah, it is still, not not popular, but you do hear it. Whereas in like the American average conservative Jewish community, you wouldn't hear it very often at all. So it's a Yiddish name. And actually growing up in Hebrew school, in Jewish day school, my Hebrew teachers were like, oh no, you need a Hebrew name. That one doesn't count. But I was like, yeah, it does. Anyway, so that's my name. That's how it was chosen. I was just named after my great grandmother. And it does not really connect to my English name, Marion. But yeah, and in terms of my name, Marion, my parents just picked it and liked it. I think the story is that they wanted to use the South African pronunciation Marianne, but my siblings who are a bit older than me, I think were the ones that convinced them that no one would know how to pronounce that, so they just called me Marion. Okay, this one I thought was really interesting. As a Jew that is a bit more modern in the way, exposing about your culture on YouTube and Instagram, do you have any other Jews confronting or maybe criticizing you for openly talking about things on your channel? At first when I read this question, I was like, no, but then I was like, oh yeah, I do. So if you look at my comments, you will often see critiques from other Jewish people, especially when I share how I do things. So for example, I tend to not film or post on Instagram on Shabbat. That's my time to take a break. And of course, in Jewish law and custom, you wouldn't use technology on Shabbat. Now, my family does use technology on Shabbat. I use my phone, we drive, and everything like that. But in the ethos of my Jewish channel and sharing Jewish life, I just tend not to film or share on Instagram, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I'm not hiding that I do use technology on Shabbat. I just don't film for I don't work on Shabbat, if that makes sense. But I do vlog when we're leading up to a holiday, and I do vlog Shabbat prep. And once in a while, for special occasions, I will film a little bit on the actual holiday. And I often will get so many critiques about that. And I'm like, that's just how I live my life. So I always say I'm really proud of my conservative Judaism. I'm very open about how I live my Jewish life, and people will disagree with that and critique it, but that's fine. You guys should start your own channels. Okay, this one I'm going to answer because I get asked it quite often. What do you recommend to a minor, specifically a 17-year-old who is adamant in converting but lives with a non-Jewish household? So I think when you're a teenager, of course, there's a moment where you question your spirituality or you're drawn to one thing or another. And I always give the same advice, which is your teenage years and the years when you're in your parents' home are a wonderful opportunity to learn. Read every book, watch different YouTube channels, expose yourself to everything out there. But you don't need to make any choices yet. Wait until you are independent and safe to make your own decisions, and also know that how you feel at 17 obviously is going to be different than how you feel at 30 and 50, and throughout our lives there's waves in how we feel. But I would say the teenagers are ones where specifically you feel so passionately about things that in retrospect you might feel differently about. You might not, but I would say what I would recommend is until you're adult, that use this opportunity to learn and try things out, hang out with your Jewish friends, see how you feel about it, visit a synagogue, read all the books, listen to podcasts, follow Jewish people, and really get a sense if as you move towards that identity, you feel more and more comfortable with it and it calls to you. And then I think once you get to college is another great time to explore. And if through that exploration you realize that it's not right for you and it's not feeling like it's your true identity, that's okay too, but I would just say that there's no rush. Okay, I'm gonna answer two last ones, and they're fun ones. The first one is, if you could splurge on something for yourself right now, what would it be? I have my eye on a new Louis Vuitton handbag that I really, really want, and I'm sort of possibly, maybe, hopefully planning to get it for my birthday. I've kind of been saving up. The way me and my husband do bigger gifts like that is we never surprise each other. I mean, we share money, so it's not like a surprise. We're I spent our money on this gift for you. It's so we talk about it in advance and save up and figure out if that's where we want to spend our money. For the past few years, we haven't really bought anything like that for ourselves, any luxury goods or anything like that, because we just bought a house and have been not fixing it up, but personalizing it. And there's things we still want to do in the house, so we've been kind of focusing funds that way. But I haven't bought something like that for myself in a very, very long time, and I really, really want this, and I've been wanting it for a long time, so I kind of am like, if I still want it by my birthday, I think I'm just gonna get it. We'll see. And the last question, what is the dynamic between your 3 little boys and their different personalities? So my kids definitely have different personalities. It's so fascinating to see. They, however, play so well together. They're sort of like a wild bunch, but they're also not. So if it's just me and the boys, they will play quietly by themselves for hours, like literally the whole day. So like the week between camp and school where I'm just home with them, we don't leave the house. They don't want to go anywhere. They never complain they're bored. They literally just want to stay home and play together. And they will spend almost the whole day just immersed in their own play. And I don't even talk to them. Like, they don't want me there. They're doing they have this whole dinosaur world or whatever they're up to. And generally I don't get involved. The only time that they'll start like picking fights with each other is usually when they're hungry. So that's when I'm like, okay, it's time for lunch. And then in the late afternoon, then they usually also will like start getting on each other's nerves, and I'm like, time for Sesame Street. But generally they're very happy to play together, so that's their dynamic. My baby is like wild and crazy, just wants to keep up with his big brothers. I was thinking, I'm so curious what his personality would be like if he didn't have 2 older brothers that he was always chasing after and wanting to keep up with. But he's like just go, wants to be in there with them. I mean, he's only 10 months old, but he's just wild and active and like really interested in being with them. My oldest son talks a lot. He's constantly chattering, like making up pretend worlds with his younger brother, but he also loves to read. So he'll sit quietly and read for hours, or he'll be immersed in play for hours with his brother. And then my middle son loves sports, and he's very like athletic, but with his older brother, they again play these like imaginary games. My middle one's definitely the quieter one. He takes after, like he is used to his brother sort of directing things, and he sort of listens and plays along, but he's finding his own voice too. But it's interesting when they're separated, my older one is still like chattering all the time and, you know, very vocal, whereas my younger one will get quieter when he's not around his older brother. So it's so interesting to see their personalities together and then their personalities when they're apart. So they're each absolutely individuals. They look very different from each other. They act very different, but they mesh really well together, and I'm very thankful for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Q&A. It was so fun to just sit down and chat and catch up with you. I have no idea. I guess I've been filming for 20 minutes, so I apologize. This is such a long one, but I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if I can help answer any other questions, what videos you want to see for the new year. If you haven't got your Jewish holiday calendar download yet, definitely check out the link in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.